Old School Lane Casual Chats is brought to you by Old School Lane, producing various content from blogs, videos, and podcasts discussing about movies, TV shows, video games, and everything else in between since 2011. You can check out the podcast on Anchor, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Radio Public, Overcast, Breaker, Pocket Cast, and YouTube. We're associated with Channel Frederator, Manic Expression, The Comic Book Cast, and The Arun Mehta Show. Hello everyone, welcome to a new episode of Casual Chats. I am Patricia, and I'm here with Arun Mehta from The Arun Mehta Show. Welcome back, Arun.
Hey, well, I'm back again.
So today we're going to be discussing about Borat Subsequent Moviefilm, starring Sacha Baron Cohen. I would say that this was definitely quite a surprise when we first heard the announcement, because we didn't expect that Sacha Baron Cohen was going to be doing a sequel to Borat.
Yeah, it was even more of a surprise when he said, like, oh yeah, I've kind of like done most of it already. And like he was basically just kind of like, doing the rounds and seeing who was going to pick it up. So it was like, yeah, very, very strange in that regard. Like, it was sprung on us in like, like there was like, obviously we were in the middle of like the Backstreet Boys reunion tour, and obviously things were pretty dismal at that time. And but then all of a sudden we got this kind of like, this big light bulb that kind of like shot up in the sort of sky, and obviously brightened up 2020 for us a little bit. So.
Yeah, considering that a lot of the movies that we were watching that year were they were just kind of ho-hum at best. I mean, especially since we saw a Trolls World Tour. I saw Scoob, and we saw a few other movies that didn't exactly like fully invested in like, oh yeah, 2020, great year for movies in general. But yeah, then, this movie came along and just kind of surprised us. So I guess we should briefly talk about the first Borat before we go into Borat Subsequent Moviefilm. So for those who don't know what Borat is, Borat was a movie from 2006, and it stars Sacha Baron Cohen as a Kazakhstani journalist by the name of Borat Sagdiyev, and he's going around the United States interviewing people and showing his country of Kazakhstan of how the American life is. And then there's this subplot about him going all the way to California so that he can convince Pamela Anderson to marry him.
Mm-hmm. Actually, I'll tell you what, baby, I can even go further than that with Borat if you want to.
Okay, basically, sure, go for
it. The origins of Borat, basically, he first appeared on a TV channel called Granada Talk TV, which at the time, Granada was trying to establish itself as basically a massive competitor, like on satellite television. So they basically went up to Sky and said, oh, hey, we can do all this content for you. And so they were looking for, obviously comedy shows to do at the time. And so one of the ones that they did at the time was a youth talk comedy show called F2F, which obviously aired on Granada Talk TV, and this was when Sacha Baron Cohen debuted the Borat character. And so this was he was known at the time as Alexei Krikler at the time. So, and then obviously he went through all sorts of like changes throughout that time, and then eventually became Borat. So when he went on to do the Ali G persona on the 11 o'clock show. So
Right.
yeah, so basically he went through various changes, and then obviously he was brought into these skits, and he was fooling people into thinking that he was like this legitimate commentator, kind of like Ali G was at that time, and so he took off on that regard, and then it would then turn into the 2006 film Borat's Glorious Nation of Cultural Learning of America to make benefits of Glorious Nation of Kazakhstan.
Yes, that is a very long, convoluted title.
Well, babe, I mean, that was a long, convoluted title, so let's get to talking about Borat Subsequent Moviefilm, delivery of the prodigious bribe to the American regime to make benefit of once glorious nation of Kazakhstan.
Yeah. Yes, even more of a convoluted title. So before we do that, I want to briefly discuss about Borat, especially for those who may be listening and want to know what our thoughts on Borat is. So when the movie came out in 2006, oh my goodness, it was like the most shocking thing I had ever seen at that point. Like the fact that you have this guy who's, pretending to be a journalist and he's talking to real people. I mean, you have to remember that this is not like a mockumentary in which like the actors and the people who are like in front of the camera actually know what's going on and they're just making a joke. Like, no, this was actually real. Like most of the people that Borat would be talking to in both this and subsequent movie film, this all actually happened. So the reactions are real, the responses are real. There's little to no editing with what they were saying. There was like only a few people actually knew about the movie's existence. I mean, you have obviously Sacha Baron Cohen, you have Pamela Anderson, which she would regret later on because I think Sacha Baron Cohen even mentioned in an interview that the reason why Pamela Anderson and her husband at the time got divorced was because of Borat. I'm not even joking. That's what he said. And then there was like another person, Lunuel, who was the quote unquote prostitute in Atlanta that, Borat met up in toward halfway toward the movie, and those were like the very and also the other actor in the movie, I forget his name, but the one who played as his assistant. But for the most part, those were like mostly the actors, and I'm sure like the background characters in Kazakhstan, but for the most part, all the Americans and the politicians and the people in the rodeo and even the people in the convention when they were meeting up with Pamela, for the most part, they had no idea that this was a movie. And when they were being filmed, they were thinking that, oh, this is just like a documentary about some foreigner and stuff like that. And so the people, when they were talking to him, they said the most ungodly, racist, like backwards things you could ever hear. And it's just so oblivious to how these people were acting towards him.
Yeah. Did you see the one with like the rodeo guy and like in the in the news report about Borat obviously infiltrating this rodeo event? Obviously the guy looks pretty reasonable, stuff like that, but in the actual movie he is actually like saying that he wants to get rid of gay people and stuff like that.
Yes, I remember.
Yeah, like there were some pretty awful things in the original movie. So it was, here's the thing: the reason why it worked is because at the time Borat was basically only known on like either the 11 o'clock show or known on F2F at the time, and was basically this, his reputation I think was just above Frank Sidebottom I think at the time, as in regards to like being this national kind of like character, if you will. And it wasn't until probably, obviously, the 2006 movie that, Borat came to, become into worldwide existence, and everybody then knew about him.
Yeah, exactly. And then there was like some appearances that he would do in the US where he would be interviewing people and he would be singing these really awful songs at bars and people would be singing along with him. I mean, remember, I think there was this one interview that Sacha Baron Cohen did where he went to like this bar in like some seedy part of town and he was like, this was like pre-Borat. I mean, he was just getting accustomed to the character and he was dressed up in a cowboy outfit and then he was singing like, throw the Jew down the well, and everybody was singing along with him. And he's like incredibly shocked in that interview saying these people actually sung along with me unironically. And he was just like incredibly shocked that these people were willing to just showcase their ugly side of racism.
Yeah, but it was pretty disturbing watching all of that. But this is the thing with his show. I mean, like he can go on to unsuspecting people and he can just bring the worst out of them. You know.
Yeah, and and we've known that he did that for his other films that came out after Borat. He did that with Bruno, that where he appeared in the talk show where he adopted an African American child, and the audience was so pissed that he did that.
Mm.
And and obviously that scene that you were talking earlier in the last part of the movie where he was like pretending to be like some guy named Straight Joe or something, and then when he was surrounded by a bunch of people who were anti-gay, and then you have the actor running in, and then they were like embracing each other and kissing, and then they just started booing and throwing beer at them and stuff. And
yeah, it was just this is what Sacha Baron Cohen can do very well, and but funny enough, like it's like he sees all of this, but he also finds it. He also winces at it as well. Like you remember that he talked about how he thinks that social media tends to spend too much. It doesn't do enough to like stop hate speech being spread around and stuff like that. So like a lot of the stuff that he sees, he also sees as a terrible thing as well. So
yeah, we'll get to that later. Oh my goodness. But yeah, then there was like The Dictator, which that's the only one I haven't seen yet. I really have to sit down and watch it. And then he did Who is America, which my sister and we watched Who is America, and we were just absolutely shocked of all the things that he was able to get these people to do. I actually showed that clip of him presenting the idea of a mosque to a small Arizona town, and people were just furious at it at my English class when I was talking about the censorship of journalism, about how some people can be kind of biased when a certain side of politics is shown to people as opposed to like a broader side showing all different sides of it. And people were just both laughing and absolutely shocked that this was able to be presented. So yeah, and then we thought, because that Who is America was canceled after 8 episodes, which I'm still begging that they show the Sarah Palin episode, that Sacha Baron Cohen was going to be done, and we thought that maybe the stuff that he was doing, like we heard about him going over to the rally with Mike Pence, and he was carrying somebody. Well, we didn't know it was him at the time. We just thought it was suspicious. But the thing that really brought us up was the event that happened around, I think, August, in which he was disguising himself as somebody, and he was singing about like the Wuhan flu and stuff like that. And we were thinking, not only is that genius, but also is he trying to revive Who is America, not knowing that he was actually filming Borat Subsequent Moviefilm.
yeah, so like we had no idea that this was about to be sprung on us. Really, like we just thought, oh hey, is he what's he trying to do here? Like we were still left in like suspense of like, oh, what's this going to be? And then all of a sudden it was like, oh, well, he's thinking about working on another Borat movie, and it's like, oh, is that what that was about? It was incredible to go through those motions at that time. So.
Yeah, and then it was perfectly released on October 23rd on Amazon Prime, a month before the voting happened.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the idea was to release it before the election, and I think it was to obviously, to say that, oh hey, America, this is what you are right now, and so I think he was looking to influence a couple of people. I would have thought. So.
Yeah. All right, so now that we got introductions out of the way, let's actually talk about this movie. And by the way, major spoilers ahead. So if you have not seen Borat Subsequent Moviefilm, go watch it on Amazon Prime and then come back to us. So yeah, so Borat's life didn't exactly go very well after the first movie, in which after he released the documentary, his country hated him and he was ostracized and he was put in jail for 14 years. And then finally, because we needed to bring Borat back by, saying, hey, this Donald Trump guy who's the president, we need you to give a peace treaty, peace offering, so that we can be able to be friends with him and we can be able to be his ally. And so then they send Borat over to give a monkey away as the peace offering. And then along the way, we meet up with his daughter, Tutar, who is living in the barn and is considered to be even lower than the animals itself.
Yeah, which also, by the way, the person who's playing this actually is, they got an actress who was actually from Bulgaria who had never done a Western movie.
No, she has not. In fact, like she didn't even speak English very well. I think this was like English was like her third or fourth language, because she is from Bulgaria and she has been like in a few movies in her country, but this is the first time in which she is featured in a Western film, like you said. And I guess this is supposed to be a replacement character for his assistant in the first movie because, well, in that movie, he's the second movie we find out that he's been turned into a chair. So this is basically his companion, and wow, she is amazing in this movie. She does such a phenomenal job alongside with Sasha, where they can improv each other, they can talk back and forth, they have this really great chemistry together. She is phenomenal.
And when she can be just really funny without obviously being too in your face about it. Like it just seems so blasé when she's kind of like doing lines and stuff like that. It's amazing to watch.
Yeah, like, her speaking Bulgarian while Sasha's trying to speak Hebrew, and, they're going back and forth with each other. And it's great. I mean, especially when you have the scenes in which the people who are surrounding them have no idea what they're saying, and they're wondering about, okay, do I have to, I mean, how much do I have to get involved in this so I can make them stop arguing? But no, she is she is up to speed with Sacha Baron Cohen's portrayal as Borat, and she is absolutely perfect in this movie, where she is able to be the girl who wants to be able to give herself to Donald Trump after she ate the monkey, or the monkey ate itself, which we know that she ate the monkey. And yeah, I know. But then she's willing to be given up to Donald Trump as a peace offering, where she's saying, "Oh, I want to be like Melina. I want to be like the princess and be locked up in a nice, beautiful cage."
Oh my goodness! And also the fact that they do the whole they even animated this movie. Like they didn't just get some like random movie that is already done. Like it's that they literally got what is is this terrible thing and actually animated it themselves.
Yeah, they actually took the scenes from Cinderella, made it terribly animated, and made Donald Trump as Prince Charming and Melina as Cinderella, and did these awful things like, grabbing her by the, and basically where Melina is like being surrounded by pretty birds and is singing, and she's watching it on her phone, and she's like imagining that this is the life I'm gonna live, and she's carrying around this book on, okay, this is what women are not supposed to do in Kazakhstan. Like, women are not supposed to drive, women are not supposed to touch certain private parts, and women are not supposed to be journalists and stuff like that. So
it basically makes a mockery of the idea of a lot of oppressive countries that obviously feed propaganda to women to obviously make them think that what they're doing is bad. So so it basically makes a mockery of that, and it's interesting when obviously we're skipping ahead, but this actually does play into the chemistry, I guess you could say, between two of our characters that come up.
Yeah, exactly. And we have Borat doing basically the same thing that he did in the first movie, in which he's back in America again, except that we have a disadvantage here where people actually know who Borat is. So we have all these people going up to Borat and saying, "Hey, look, it's Borat. Take my picture. I'll give you $5 if you do this thing." So, yeah, I mean, we're in Kazakhstan, he's being completely shamed and ostracized by his people. In America, they're embracing him, saying, "Oh, Borat, it's you." So, yeah, now we know that it's been 14 years and people actually know who Borat is. And so now Sacha Baron Cohen actually has to come up with more clever disguises so that he can be able to interact with people and do all the things that he can for the movie.
Mm-hmm. So obviously we get to that bit. So I mean, also we go through various sketches of there's there's the infamous father-daughter dance that they say, and yeah.
Wait, by the way, that was real. That actually happened.
Yeah. Well, a lot of this actually happened because, I mean, that wasn't the only thing. Obviously, there was them obviously going to... Wasn't they going to the theme park as well? And obviously they...
The theme park,
they're going past all the bits where they're obviously, making fun of people, and obviously there's the abortion, obviously there's the pro-life place that they went to and stuff like that, and then there's obviously but in between all of that, they actually do skits where they actually show bonding between our two characters and actually make them and then they build them all up to the montage that they have later. So the great thing I'll say about this Borat movie is that they make a really good attempt to actually show some chemistry between our two main characters.
Yeah, which wasn't there in the first movie. And also another thing that wasn't in the first movie but is in the second movie is that there's stakes involved. In the first movie, it's like, oh, do this documentary. In the second movie, it's like, you better give the peace treaty, you better give our peace offering over to the president or you'll be executed. So there is actually stakes on the line where Borat has to deliver this stuff over to Trump. Otherwise, he'll be killed.
Hmm.
And so we have the scene in which when he's faxing his he's faxing the guy in Kazakhstan back and forth saying, okay, the monkey didn't the monkey didn't survive the journey. And then he's like, okay, well, I'm sorry, if you don't deliver something over to Trump, you're going to be executed. And he's like, oh, what if I deliver my daughter? And he's like, okay, we'll let you do that. And yeah, like that part didn't exactly go very well either, especially since now it cuts into this scene in which when Borat disguises himself as Trump and actually carries Tutar into the rally where Mike Pence is talking about, okay, there's only been like 6 people who've been affected with the coronavirus, which, oh my God.
Hmm.
That's so awkward now, but anyway. So then we have him carrying Tutar saying, hey, Mike Pence, I got the woman for you. And then, he's like, then that's when they start removing him. And he's like, okay, now we need to think of a plan B. And so, well, technically it's a plan C because plan A was the monkey. So their plan C is, hey, why don't we give you to Rudy Giuliani?
Yeah, America's mayor. And this is when we get to like that whole. I mean, here's the thing about this: like, there shouldn't be tension in this, but because we sort of know the backstory of like this, and also all the news reports that came about Rudy Giuliani before this movie was even released, like giving away like kind of like what the big climax of the movie is, like oh good grief, I hate saying that now, but I mean, given the fact that they've kind of given away like what the big thing is in this movie. In a way, like just outing Rudy Giuliani for like kind of like the creep that he is, and so I mean, you just feel the amount of dread in your gut when you see her sitting with this this aging mummy that's kind of like sitting alongside him, and like you can just tell that there's some awkwardness in this. And that, and then when you finally like, there was kind of like a heroic thing, like when you saw, Sacha Baron Cohen like come in like women's lingerie, and I was saying, no, don't do it, take me instead, and like you kind of like, yeah, go Borat, like, and it's like, then you're reminded that like this is supposed to be like a hilariously stupid movie, like like, and it says, oh no, take me, look, I've had I've had people take me up the ass before. It's like it's just, oh my god, that's amazing.
Yeah, it's absolutely just wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's that part,
Yeah,
and
but you know what
there's
the amazing thing about this is that the woman who played obviously Tutar in this movie, she still has positive relationship with like the woman who babysitted her and also a few other people that she's interacted with in the movie. So like,
yeah, so I guess let's get this out of the way because a lot of people are going to be pointing this out. So, the babysitter in this movie was an actual person who had no idea about that they were doing a movie. She was told that, oh, they're just doing a documentary about women's rights or human rights or something. And so then she was given little to no information about this. So all she knew was that there was this one guy who was going to give his daughter away to an older man. And that was all that she was pretty much told. And then, she was like keeping her around. And, that's when Tutar's showing her the book and that she was explaining, I'm going to, go get plastic surgery so that I can look good for this old guy. And so she starts talking to her and saying, no, you need to stand up for yourself. You're too pretty to be getting plastic surgery at 16. And you don't need to do what your father says. You can be your own woman. You can be able to do what you want. And then we have that scene in which she meets up with Borat again after he's collecting her ball and chain, saying, hey, you shouldn't be, doing this. You should, go and rescue your daughter right before, she's, her life is ruined by this old man. Go do something. So basically, the babysitter was able to be a crucial part in the movie, even though that at the time she had no idea that this was happening.
yeah, and obviously with these types of movies, obviously there's it doesn't fall shy of legal trouble. I think.
Oh yeah. So since she had no idea that this was actually a movie, and she was paid like what, maybe $1,200 for it, and then afterwards, she now realized that this was actually a movie, and then there was like some legal issues. But thanks to the fans knowing about her losing her job because of the what, that's when they started a that's when they did a GoFundMe campaign to help pay her bills, and then Sacha Baron Cohen and Maria Bakalova were able to help her out in her needs as well. So they were able to make amends, and they were able to patch things up. So it's fine. The one scene that was like really shocking, and I heard this shortly after the movie came out, was that Sacha Baron Cohen actually had to confess to a woman that he met in a synagogue that he was pretending to act like a Jewish stereotype, and saying
wasn't it because like the whole scene was getting out of hand, and a lot of people started getting like really grossly offended, and so then he basically it was to the point where he had to break character at that point.
Yeah, and then there was also that subplot about, the Holocaust never happened. The Holocaust is a fake. And then she was like, but I'm a Holocaust survivor. And then we're like, yep, stop the tape. I want to give you a confession. This is a movie, and I'm, playing a character who's like this. I mean, it makes a lot of sense why she would not know about this character, especially if I doubt that she would have seen the first movie or any of the other stuff that Sacha Baron Cohen has been a part of.
Yeah,
so,
I think we have to keep in mind, like, yes, there have been moments where people actually do know who Borat is, but at the same time, there are some people who are still kind of like, not too aware of like modern culture at this point, or even this movie was like 14 years old at the time. Like,
exactly.
There's still people, surprisingly, there's still some people out there who have not seen this movie yet.
That's true, especially since, once again, this is an Amazon Prime exclusive. That's the only way you can be able to watch this movie.
I haven't even watched the original movie either. There's still, surprisingly enough, there's still people that are still like completely, out of the loop when it comes to Borat.
That's kind of surprising, to be quite honest, but I guess I could see that. I mean, I guess at that time, after Borat, he would have been known for other things. I mean, he was in the Madagascar movies where he played as King Julian, and he was in other projects. He would have probably been known for that as opposed to Borat.
Mm-hmm. So
anyway,
yeah. So where are we up to now?
Yeah, so I guess we're going over like the other people that he met up with along the way that really showcased of how messed up this movie is, considering that this even though this movie came out 14 years after the original, it still showcases its not comfortable moments. Like you have the scene in which when Tutar ate the cupcake and then she swallowed the plastic baby that was in it. And then they took her over to a crisis pregnancy center where the guy was talking about, you need to keep the baby. That's what Jesus would have wanted you to do. And then he's saying like, I put the baby in her. I'm her father. And then it goes into this really uncomfortable moment. And then you have the plastic surgeon talking about like, okay, if you want to look beautiful, you have to, get more bigger. And, talking about like, this is how a Jew's nose would look like, which is really uncomfortable. And then, oh man, then we have then we have Jerry and Jim, the two guys that Borat was staying with during the beginnings of the pandemic, where he stayed with them for 5 straight days, and they were just feeding him all of this stuff regarding about like, the Democrats are more dangerous than the coronavirus and all this crazy stuff that they were talking to him about.
Yeah, it's like that is insane. The fact that he stayed in character for 5 days.
Yes, 5 straight days, and he did not break character once, and they had no idea who he was. And then finally, they drove all the way to Washington for that rally. And that's when he performed his, now infamous performance about like, Fauci, what you going to do? We're going to inject you with the Wuhan flu. And then everybody was like singing. And there was a guy who did the Hitler salute. The one thing that they didn't show in this movie, which I'm kind of disappointed at, but I can kind of see, was that when they did find out that this was a hoax, and then they tried to capture him and they tried to, say that he's a fraud. And then there was that scene in which they were saying, we're here. This guy had nothing to do with the rally. We're here as peaceful people and all that kind of stuff. And then like moments after the ambulance drove away, he came back disguised as another person and they had no idea who he was. Mm-hmm. I would have loved to have seen that. That would have been so funny.
Yeah, well, obviously, I mean, it'll be interesting for like if they ever do like they release it on like DVD or like Blu-ray, something like that. And they put it in like to put it in like the extras or something like that. That'd be interesting to see.
Yeah, that would be really interesting to see.
Yeah.
So yeah, and then I guess we have to talk about the plot twist ending. So
Yeah. So the plot twist at the end is that Borat is the one responsible for the worldwide pandemic that we're currently talking about right now. So
yes. So the president of Kazakhstan had given him an injection of the virus, and he had been going around the globe and sneezing and coughing, meeting up with Tom Hanks and Rita Wilson, coughing and sneezing, and he was responsible for the virus. And he was absolutely shocked by it.
yeah, but unknowing to our president of Kazakhstan, he's actually been recording the entire thing on his phone, which he thought was a calculator. So,
Yes.
yeah, so
Yeah, there's this whole thing in the movie about him getting an iPhone for the first time, and yeah, so that's actually pretty funny as well.
So, that pretty much wraps up the film. Obviously, Borat and his daughter obviously have this nice, wonderful relationship, and now Tutar is now the number 3 reporter in the whole of Kazakhstan. So, yeah. So,
Yeah.
and Borat gets his job back, and they have this. It is a satisfying ending, isn't it? You know, like
It is. It is a great ending, and you have both Tutar and you have Borat being journalists together. And instead of in the first movie where they ended off with like, oh, here comes the running of the Jews and stuff like that. It's like now we have the running of the Americans, and here's a Karen coming by and she's sneezing, and here's Fauci coming by. Oh no, the Karen attacked him, and that kind of stuff. It's like, ooh, my goodness, we're gonna end it here, huh?
Yeah.
But no, it was actually really sweet of how Tutar and Borat were able to come together as journalists, and she was able to live her dream as being somebody that she didn't think that she was going to be, which is great.
But as we know with Borat, this is not the end of the story. So,
No.
Kazakhstan decided to respond to this. But here's the thing about this. Unlike the reception of the first Borat movie, which he was denounced by the Kazakh state as a libelous smear against the people of Kazakhstan, and resulted in a legal action against Cohen and his distributors, the release of the sequel actually received more of a mixed reception. So, the Kazakh American Association denounced the film for promoting racism, cultural appropriation, and xenophobia. But on the other hand, the Tourism Board of Kazakhstan actually appropriated the catchphrase "very nice" to promote the advantages of visiting Kazakhstan. It's capitalizing yeah. So I mean, so in one hand, the American Kazakh board were unhappy with the film, but at the same time, the tourism industry actually for Kazakhstan actually were pretty happy with it because then they could promote it alongside the film of them coming to the country. So.
Yeah, and all the pictures that you see of like Kazakhstan where it's like, oh, these rundown villages, it's like, no, actually Google Kazakhstan and it is way more beautiful than you think it is. Like, it is gorgeous. It is like it is just like it is like a Central Asian country like you would expect. It's just like really top of the line. It's just like the whole thing about the way that Borat portrayed it, it was supposed to be a joke.
Yeah.
But
and also there was, here's the thing about this though, like, Judith Dim Evans, who is the person who was the Holocaust survivor in the synagogue, apparently it wasn't her herself who, wished to, take legal action against the movie. Apparently she died before the release of the film. So it was her estate that actually took the legal action. According to this, so the lawsuit was dismissed, but I mean, obviously, Sacha Baron Cohen to this day still says that she was very well aware of basically what was going on and even broke character to do it. So, and the lawsuit was dismissed in October. So, and also there was the whole thing with Janice Jones, the babysitter, feeling betrayed about the filmmakers not being honest about the documentary, quote unquote. So there was everything about that, and also as you can probably imagine, Rudy Giuliani also himself was also critical of him being caught with his pants down. Wah wah. But
I'm surprised that he had no idea that this was happening, considering that in Who Is America, they were already targeting a lot of other politicians. So you would think that he would get a warning from some of them saying, hey, Sacha Baron Cohen is filming us doing these stupid things, don't take his trappings. So
I think at the time, they were more distracted with we've got this bumbling idiot in the White House, and therefore we've got to try and make him look plausible. So I think this is the thing about this. This couldn't have come at a better time, I think, for Sacha, because everyone was distracted with everything that was going on, the coronavirus, the election, and stuff like that. So he just kind of put himself in between the cracks and was able to come up with this movie. So I think, dare I say, and I mean, look at Rudy Giuliani is like a shell of his former self at this point, and I think he probably could have Sacha Baron Cohen probably told him up front that this whole thing was a fake and that this whole thing was a movie, and he wouldn't be none the wiser. I don't think. He still argues to this day that Trump still won the election. So
Right.
yeah.
Anyway, but yeah, overall, this movie was just as good as the first movie. It was able to, pull up no punches in portraying people as they are. Sacha Baron Cohen does a great job as always. He hasn't lost one step of his character of Borat. Maria Bakalova is a great addition to the movie, and the way that they were able to tell a cohesive story with actual tension and some heart in it, which was kind of missing in the first film, is pretty commendable. I would love to see them do another sequel 15, 20 years down the road in which Borat would come back to America, and let's see what kind of status it's in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but until then, I think that's going to be our dose of Borat until obviously they decide to do would they dare even do a third movie? I think at this point.
Well, I think that Sacha Baron Cohen talked about that he has no interest in doing a third movie, that he already did his purpose and he's just going to leave it as that. So if that's the case, then okay. I mean, if you don't want to do any more Borat films, then sure. I mean, I guess we could just put the character to rest for now.
Yeah. I guess until, maybe North Korea opens up and then he might decide, oh, hey, here's another bunch of suckers he can obviously make a movie out of,
I don't know.
Yeah, but I mean, overall, enjoyable movie. Definitely a good sequel. And I mean, would I say it's the greatest sequel of all time? I'm not too sure about that, but I mean, it's still a really enjoyable film, regardless. So.
Well, it was better than Trolls World Tour.
Well, yeah, and it's all better than some other sequels that we've seen. But I mean, yeah, I think it's Borat, and I don't think it's lost its touch. And I think I'll be interested to see if Sacha Baron Cohen ever does this again. I'm interested to see how far he can take it, really. So.
Yeah, well, we'll see. And if he ever does try to attempt of doing another TV show, who knows? Anyway, so yeah, that's pretty much it for our discussion of Borat Subsequent Moviefilm and briefly about the first Borat movie. So, Aaron, thank you so much for coming on by.
Thank you.
All right, so let us know in the comments below about what you guys thought of Borat and Borat Subsequent Moviefilm. Did you think it was better than the first movie? Did you think it was not as good as the first movie? What did you think of Borat and Tutar and the other crazy moments that happened? Please let us know. Thank you so much for listening. Hope to see you around soon, and take care.
Bye-bye.